It's been an exhausting journey just to get in here. And now we're heading out with the dogs at night. See what we can catch. It's getting a little bit crazy. We're heading straight up. It's just boulders and rocks. Okay, we're right on top of something, but whether or not we can actually get to it's another story. I'm Les Stroud. I'm in Madagascar on a mission to seek out the true masters of survival. Some of the last indigenous tribes from around the world.
Before they're gone. Before the past is lost. Before their world vanishes. I can learn their ways.
Separated from the coast of East Africa some 165 million years ago, Madagascar is the world's 4th largest island. I'm here to learn from 2 of the tribes on the island, the Antandroy, who live on the extreme southern coast, and the Antanosy, who live in the remote interior. The Antandroy live in huts along the coastline, living life between sand dunes and ocean. They're strong and tough, but survival is becoming a struggle for the Antandroy as they battle drought from deforestation and overfishing from illegal fishing boats. From the water's edge, I'll journey to the southeastern interior of Madagascar, across rough roads and wet mud to find the Antanosy tribe. Antanosy means people of the island. Invited to live in their rural village, I'll hunt with wild dogs and take part in an ancient tribal tradition of seed reading performed by local shamans, to learn of the connection between spirituality and survival. It's my first day with the Antandroy tribe in their village called Ejijiky. It's early morning and already the sun is scorching hot. The winds are strong and the ocean swells are cresting close to 20 feet.
I can't tell whether this is bait or dinner.
Without fresh water, life jackets, or supplies, we're heading out towards the open sea. The Antandroy speak a mixture of French combined with their local tribal dialect. But in these strong winds, communication will mostly be made by hand gestures. Their brute physical strength is obvious and an important and necessary survival tool to navigate the open sea.
This is crazy. I had no idea we were coming right out into the open ocean. As far as I knew, we were just going beyond the small reef. These guys are out here, no fear. We got 20-foot swells, no fear at all. Out we go. I can't say I've ever been out in swells this big and a boat this small before.
We've got to paddle in swells past the coral reef to reach the bigger fish in deeper waters. My job is to cast the homemade fishing line out to the sea and hopefully bring in some bounty. They have a reason to be wary here. Fishermen have drowned in rough waves and unexpected storms.
All right. As soon as I look down and concentrate on working the line and trying to get this set up and even trying to work my camera, I end up getting seasick, go figure. Okay, so now it's all about not puking and looking like a greenhorn.
Beneath us, the bounty of the ocean is not what it once was, and these fishermen have to travel for many hours in rough and treacherous seas just to get to better fishing areas to simply feed their families. They don't have TV sets and radios to learn of offshore illegal fishing by other countries. They only know their fish are disappearing, and they would much rather see me bring in a good catch than give in to the inevitable truth. It's getting harder for them to live, as they have for thousands of years. We've only been out here a couple of hours, but the men decide to turn back. It's been a lot of work and a lot of calories burned, with nothing in return. But this is the price of living off the land, or in this case, the open sea. Disappointed, we return to the village, empty-handed.
It's pretty much a bust, which is the reality of hunting, fishing. You never guaranteed anything. 20-foot swells and no luck. In the evenings, the women will cook, keep the fires going. The men will start to make things to prepare for fishing or hunting or whatever they're doing for the next day, and that's what we're going to do now. This is like anything in survival. In the survival of this village and survival of these people, there are slow, tedious things that must be done. Things like making a fish net. You know, I've made nets where I've had to untwine old thick rope to smaller rope, make a net out of that or rope out of it, and it's no different. It takes a long time, and you've got to put your mind to it. That's how you catch fish later.
Schooling here is almost non-existent, and there's a shortage of teachers. Children from the village have to walk miles to the nearest school. Most stay home to learn to live off the sea, feed livestock, and weave nets like their fathers and grandfathers did before that. The Antandroy's ability to adapt to a changing external environment is key to their continued survival.
Survival within a small village like this comes down to what have you got within hand's reach that you can make use of, that you can get food or water with. And I guess unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, plastic is becoming readily available, especially when you're connected to an ocean. A lot of stuff floats in. It's a sad comment, but it's also a testament to their tenacity of survival.
As the first night passes, I'll sleep out on a sand dune. The ocean can always send in a storm, so they feel obliged to teach me how to make my own shelter. Tomorrow will take only a day to build a house.
It's morning time in the village here. They had a hurricane come through last year, wiped out a few huts. And they need to rebuild, build new. For them, what that means is gathering from way out there. They'll go for a long ways with their cows and a little cart and bring back the supplies they need. They've pretty much done most of that for the building they want to build, but I'm going to go out and help them get the last few pieces. And we're going to put a hut together so that I've got a place to sleep. These people got to get used to just living with sand in pretty much everything. It's in everything, it's on everything. I imagine they don't even notice it anymore. Bottom of their feet, they don't seem as flattened out, and they don't even look actually as tough and as hardened as a lot of the jungle people that I might have spent some time with, but nonetheless, they step on a lot of spines, so they've got to be fairly tough.
This is a sisal tree. You can find it around the world, in the Caribbean islands, Brazil. It's even been planted in Florida. Its fibers are tough and durable when broken down, creating the perfect twine or rope for building the hut. It's also resistant to deterioration from salt water, which will protect the family from ocean spray and stormy weather.
In order to work on the hut, they told me I must be up the crack of dawn and meet with them. Once you start to get around 10 o'clock in the morning, the sun's just way too hot. Even these people here will stop working, take a break. There's a reason why the siesta was invented.
Logging of the Madagascar rainforest began heavily in the 1980s, and local tribes feel the effect in the form of drought today. The lack of rainfall is directly linked to decreased forest cover when the baobab trees are cut down. With no rain and no forest cover to protect the land from strong ocean winds, coastal sand dunes are creeping steadily inland, turning once fertile soil into desert.
This plant is sisal, and it's they grow it in crops all around here and sell it. Well, not these people, industry does. There's a massive sisal farm. Okay? Okay. Not far from here. And they wiped out what was originally a massive forest of baobab trees to make the farm.
I'm on the extreme southern coast of Madagascar, living and learning from the Antandroy people. It's only mid-morning, but already the sun is scorching hot. We've gathered all the materials needed to make a new hut for me to sleep in the village. Construction is simple, but we have to hurry to get it done before we get hit by the heat of midday. We'll construct it right here on the beach, and after I leave, a family of 4 or even 6 will use this hut as their coastal home.
A classic carpenter, smoke in the mouth, working away on the joint.
The Madagascar coastline can be pummeled by strong winds, sudden cyclones, and even hurricanes, so the foundation has to be dug deep for strength.
Never dug a foundation by hand before.
It seems like every man in the village has come to help put up the hut.
You know what happens when you get too many carpenters.
It's always interesting to me to see that every society, except perhaps my own, tends to have a community approach to building someone a home, even for an outsider like me.
That's a hammer. Definitely the apprentice today. Surprised they're not sending me just to go grab the nails.
But there would be no nails in this hut. Simple bindings and lashings, as well as snug-fitting pieces of wood, are all that's needed to make a home on this remote ocean coastline.
The heat for all of us is getting extremely intense. Even for these guys, they don't like building in the middle of the day. We got the roof, it's just about done. Work a little bit longer on it, and then finish it off when the cools off a little bit. Wow. And I gotta stop or I'm gonna get heat stroke. That's intensely hot.
A few more hours of work, some cloud cover rolls in, and a new Antandroy house is complete.
Yeah, that looks awesome. So we're closed in. Well, we're not watertight yet, but if any luck at all, it won't rain tonight. Let's check it out. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. It would have taken them, you know, probably a week or 2 or more to gather all the materials hiking far, but with a bunch of guys on hand, one day, and you got a little mini hut. To them, a house, and that's gonna be awesome. Well, the roof's not leak-proof just yet, but and there are lots of clouds coming in. Hopefully it won't rain tonight. We'll get through this fine. In this heat, the rain will be very cool, though. All right, time to celebrate.
A new hut is not completed until there's a celebration, and the entire village gathers to honor the men's hard work during the day. The people of Madagascar are known around the globe for their musical nature, cheerful songs, and dance troupes. Not only used as entertainment, their songs tell the stories of their unique tribal history, passed down from generation to generation. One way to keep the culture alive.
It's morning, and it's actually not a bad night sleeping here at all. It's nice and quiet, waves lull you to sleep. There's people stretched out, sleep on the sand, some of them in their huts, some of them outside, kids just laying around, but they're slowly waking up. Bugs aren't bad at all. There's seemingly no biting bugs, even though there's a lot of malaria here, except in the last couple of minutes. All of a sudden I'm inundated with flies, but otherwise, kind of a slow, easy morning here. No surprise to see that people just sleep out under the stars here. There's no point sleeping in the huts, except in the morning the flies seem to come on. That's when the bugs come out. But I was bitten by nothing all night long. I actually was in my hut for a good part of the night, and then came outside and just slept outside under the stars. It's just more breeze, a little nicer feeling. That's better. The moisture here seems to never stop. One of my cameras completely filled up with moisture. And even though it seems so much like a desert here, it's just constantly humid. You're constantly covered with sand. There's sand in everything. There's sand in their food. There's sand all over the place all the time. I guess you get used to it. If you took the Sam Bushmen and combined them with the ocean and a life mostly based on the ocean, I think you end up with these people, the Antandroy of Madagascar. Very many similarities. The land here is harsh, it's hot,
It's not extremely fertile. Around them are the fringes of modern civilization encroaching in all the time, yet they're on the doorstep of the ocean and a bountiful harvest of lobster and fish, crabs, that sort of thing.
This is a strange element of survival here. It really is a bit of a hybrid. Harsh desert environment, bountiful, beautiful ocean. The two come together, and that's where these Antandroy survive.
The village of Ejijiky has a widely spread out population of 16,000, with only 2% claiming any employment. For most young men, fishing is the only way to earn an income.
For these people, survival is definitely a community affair. You know, one person's good at one thing, one person is good at another thing, but they've got to come together as groups if you're going to survive in a village like this, if you're going to survive at all out in harsh environments. They all work together, whether it's building a hut or getting out and net fishing.
The Antandroy make every tool by hand, even their net-making tools. They learn alone or with friends, starting around 15 or 16 years of age. Most young men also work a second job as a farmer. To fish or cultivate land are the only two options. Here we're carving a tool called a Ejijiky, used to wind in and cast out the fishing line.
Ah, okay. Okay. Ejijiky. All right. Whew. Done. Now we just have to make a net, which is only going to take 2 weeks. And then we can go fishing.
I'm on the remote southern coast of Madagascar. I'm with the Antandroy people preparing to go fishing by freediving.
They don't have access to just buying snorkels and things, so they make snorkels and masks and flippers out of just garbage found on the beach. Beaches everywhere in the world, garbage, especially plastic and rubber, is strewn upon it, and they make use of it to build items for survival, like snorkels.
With fish populations decreasing, the men must dive deeper and deeper to make a catch. Making dive masks, which they call masky, is an example of their ability to adapt to the encroaching modern civilization.
In some ways, it's got to seem like easy pickings for them to find rubber and plastic along the shoreline and be able to manufacture it into things that they can use. It's a lot easier than hiking for many, many miles and having to dig out roots and make rope out of plants. Life on the ocean and survival on the ocean is always easier than deeper inland. The ocean has been giving up bounty for thousands of years. First it was natural bounty, now it's unnatural bounty. It's still usable. Positive bent on a sad story, I guess. Really? They did that fast, there you go. That's working the rubber with the hot knife. All right. Time to go use it.
The Antandroy's method of fishing with the net requires strong swimming skills, deep lungs, and a lot of luck. A phrase among fishermen here is, "It depends on the sea." And asking for the luck and grace of the gods is a common local tradition. Running the net out to its full length, we paddle beyond the breakwall of reef and set anchor. Jumping in the water, we swim another 75 yards and slap the water to scare the fish towards the net. Next, we free dive 20 to 40 feet down to scare the marine life out of the coral and weeds on the ocean floor. The Antandroy fishermen know where to find and how to target different species of ocean life, whether it's fish, sea urchins, snails, crabs, or sharks. Each species requires a different method and tool, but lobster is the most valuable catch.
We got 2 of these guys. 2 lobsters. Yeah. That's the reality of fishing. You just never know what kind of luck you're going to have, or if you're going to have any luck at all. In this case, it's a bit of time, putting the net out, a couple of men using the boat, diving down. It's a lot of calories expended, but we wound up with 2 of these babies. So it's a sweet deal today, and sometimes it's nothing.
These are nasty little spikes here. And you gotta be really careful how you catch these things because they'll spike right into your hand.
There are fewer and fewer lobster to catch, and a few thousand mouths to feed. It took 5 men, 200 yards of fishing net, and 2 hours of calorie-burning effort just for this tiny catch. And this won't change after I leave this place.
I know this looks like fantastic survival, and it is. But the reality is, on this side of the sand dunes, life is harsh. It's a desert. On that side of the sand dunes, it's the ocean, and it can be bountiful.
The Antandroy are both metaphorically and literally living between two worlds. With the ocean supplies dwindling and their farmlands turning to sand, their future is uncertain. Yet they still make time to just be human and express themselves.
Well, I would have thought that there'd be no problem with working off steam, this kind of lifestyle, this kind of survival. But they've asked me to join them this morning because apparently they have other ways of working off steam.
This is Ringa, an ancient wrestling custom that pits man against man in a friendly but serious competition of physical strength and skill. Participants have been known to walk up to 2 days from outlying villages to compete for the winning prize of local currency or goods. And with that prize, the winner could purchase better fishing tools or badly needed medical supplies, usually for malaria. The big thing about the match is the taunting. A wrestler announces his chosen opponent by giving him a scarf to tie around his waist. And then the taunting goes back and forth until it's time to enter the ring. The object then is to get the opponent on his back. It's a simple challenge of strength and agility, and I wasn't going to get away with just spectating. The largest and strongest of the Ejijiky villagers challenges me to show him what I'm made of. The heat hasn't taken so much out of me that I can't give him a ride for his money. I may be smiling, but I mean as much business as he does. Customs like these tell me much about the nature of the Antandroy people. Maintaining enthusiasm and a friendly competitive spirit while surrounded by a harsh landscape and adversity. All the while, facing an uncertain future. I'm with the Antandroy tribe of southern Madagascar. After 2 failed fishing trips, the villagers are showing me an easier and more sure way to scare up a meal. Night hunting with torches along the reef. But the first step is simply to build the torch.
As much as they feel that their survival is tied in with the ocean and 80% of their food comes from the ocean, there's still all of the spillover from the land, what they need from the land to be able to harvest from the ocean. I think we found what we're looking for here. It's crazy. In all kinds of survival, it's the reality of how far you have to travel sometimes for one little item is often missed. The journeys can be very far. So, if you want to make a torch, we got a long way to go into the Madagascar desert. I think what strikes me with these people in Madagascar is how incredibly fit they are. They all look like lightweight boxers, if you ask me. Hey. Hey.
Fishing by night is my next challenge. And there are no stores here that I can run out to and buy a torch from.
The tree's full of sap. You can see it in the wood. It's also very hard. It's like chopping stone. Okay, so that's what's working for this particular tree is it's full of sap. So we're just going after the chunks here because the sap will keep the branches burning for using them as torches.
A few hours later, and we're back at the ocean, getting ourselves set up for night fishing. Torches used by people living off the land are simply a bundle of material that holds a flame. Similar to most survival torches, fine fibers are found in the middle, and coarser fibers are at the outside of the fire bundle. The sapwood acts like a wick within the torch, allowing it to burn longer and stronger throughout the night and keep it from blowing out in the wind. Binding all the materials together, we set flame to the tip and will soon begin our hunt. The tide is out, so whatever bounty that might be there is now exposed for an easy catch. The method of torch fishing is very basic. Walk along the reef at low tide with your torch lit and grab the sea creatures with your hands. Lobster, fish, and crayfish can be found hiding in these reefs, but you've got to be careful. Their spiny shells and sharp pinchers can easily slice open a finger or hand. Normally not a big deal, except out here, there's no hospital or doctor, so a simple infection can take hold and kill. And there's plenty of poisonous creatures in the reef.
See that?
Looks like it's just a baby eel. There he goes, disappears.
This reef is essentially their grocery store. Both adults and kids alike come out here not for a quick treat, but rather out of the necessity to feed their families. The Antandroy are experts at snatching up these defensive creatures, an example of their quick reflexes and adept survival skills.
Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're out here for. For these guys, lobsters. I tried to go, and he stopped me from doing it. Said, it's just don't even try. These things, we've got a couple of different pinchers, a couple of different spikes, and if you don't know just how to grab them, you saw how quickly he went in and grabbed them, and you get your hand stabbed. We got dinner. Now we eat, finally.
Here in what is considered a remote part of the ocean,
Oh, didn't like that.
the ocean bounty is thinning out, and the fishermen have to travel farther every year to simply feed their families.
It doesn't get any fresher than that when it comes to lobster. That's about it. It's as simple as that. Just, head out and just like a dinner table served up with this massive reef out there. You just go out when the water's low, walk along, and look in all the holes. And sooner or later, you come up with a crab, a bunch of lobster. I'm sure on big nights, they probably grab a couple of dozen lobster. Tough thing about tonight is it's actually a bright full moon, and that makes for the worst lobster catching of all. So he said it was going to be tough when we get out there. When we found one, we wouldn't have starved.
Hold on here. That was well worth it. That's survival food.
The Antandroy have taught me what it's like for pure survival out here. Some sort of crazy hybrid of harsh desert survival and bountiful ocean. But now, I'm going to head further inland to another group of people in Madagascar that concern themselves much more with ceremony. There's a lot of black magic in this country, and ceremony. And I want to find out how some of that touches the people and their lives and enables their survival.
I leave the coast and begin my journey inland. Part of the difficulty of reaching these tribes is the lack of good roads. It'll take 2 days of driving to get to the village of Tsihalagna, the remote and isolated home of the Antanosy tribe. Known as the people of the island, the Antanosy are widely regarded as the traditional healers, possessing great knowledge of the rare medicinal plants that only grow in southern Madagascar. I have to travel through small villages, herds of cattle, and inevitably tropical downpours. This, after all, is the rainy season. These rural villages rarely get travelers passing through, and everywhere I go, the villagers stop and stare. As I climb higher into the mountain ridges, the villages become few and far between, until eventually the roads seem to disappear altogether.
So that's the deal. Just to get started, we gotta go across the river here. No problem for the kids, apparently. The Madagascar kids, they go across this every day, probably. Problem is, when I get to the other side, if it does come on to rain tonight, this river can go up a few feet real quickly, and I'm not coming back. Start a new life with the people of Madagascar.
Ancestor worship is considered the most important part of the Malagasy culture.
This is what I call gravestones. These are the gravestones of the Madagascar people. There are places where they actually paint the rocks as well, paint the rocks with the life story of the person who died, but these are just rough and rugged because we're way out in the hills right now. Of course, they had to work all this stone without any machineries.
Gravestones like these can be found throughout Madagascar and are considered to be sacred spiritual sites.
This is it now. It's the rainy season in Madagascar. It's going to be a heck of a hike further into this valley to get to the people I'm trying to get to. Now, these people are a lot more, say, interested in ceremony than the people on the coast, where it's more just about survival. That said, the first thing they want to do when they get me in there is to go out hunting with them. Apparently tonight's the night and they don't want to miss it.
The Antanosy like to hunt with 1 or 2 dogs, and they go after just about anything, from small mammals to flushing out various species of deer.
Okay, so this is the deal. By the time I was able to make it in to their little village in the middle of the hills and valleys here, it was already nighttime and pouring rain. It's been an exhausting journey just to get in here. And now we're heading out with the dogs at night. See what we can catch. See what survival of the Antanosy is like.
I'm told whatever we catch tonight, we won't eat right away. We'll return to the village to share the feast with the rest of the tribe. "92% of the reptiles found in Madagascar exist naturally nowhere else on Earth.
La petak.
La pitak.
La petak.
La pitak, yeah. Oh,
Easy.
oh, okay. We just halted on a hillside here, and the dog's off doing his thing, trying to scare up a tenrak, some kind of small mammal that they eat. Night hunting with dogs. Tenraks.
The reason for doing this hunt is to earn their respect, to allow me to participate in their seed ceremony.
It's getting a little bit crazy. We're heading straight up. It's just boulders and rocks. Thick vegetation. All because apparently the dogs might have spotted something up here, or maybe not. But we're actually boulder climbing in the dark here now. Okay, we're right on top of something, but whether or not we can actually get to it's another story. The dogs have hauled up here, and he's looking at a couple of holes in the ground. See what we can find. Hey! There we go. The dogs were successful after all. They were laughing because they were standing right over top of it the whole time trying to find it. The dogs do the business, and it's still warm, and dinner.
After catching what's called a tenrak, the morning brings with it the promise of my involvement in a seed ceremony.
Well, night of rain over with. We are headed out to gather sap for the ceremony. The Antanosy primarily survive through farming, so ceremony to them becomes important and an integral part of what they do in their daily lives. We've got about an hour hike to get out into the hills here and gather some of the sap that we need for the ceremony. Apparently it's trance-inducing. walking through mostly rice paddies to get out into the bush area here, which is a lot of the farming that they do. They've got cattle, ducks, various fowl, rice, potato. That's about it. Mostly a farming existence.
A lot of the topography here is very park-like, but for the Antanosy, it's simply a vast open storeroom of useful medicinal plants.
Little guys eat along the way. Stomach's not really ready for any food, but not bad. The thing about survival in a situation like this for these peoples, eating is either all at once, maybe once a day with the community, with the family, and the rice or the duck or whatever it is they're going to eat, or it's a matter of little bits of food here and there as they travel along. If you can graze while you're traveling, you keep putting nutrition into your body. It's a good thing. Okay, finally after hiking up the hill, and I do mean hiking up the hill, check this out. We've finally made it to the tree. Of course we asked, it was a flat hike and it'll only take a few minutes. Well, nothing flat about this hike. It's a straight climb up, very steep hill past a bunch of boulders. So. Anyway, this is the tree here. This tree's called a ramy. We need to pick up some of this dried sap here. Same sort of process you might have anytime you're gathering sap from a tree. They'll come here and they'll cut it. They'll let it, they'll wound the tree, let it ooze out and bleed, and then that'll become solid later. And this is later now, basically coming back and able to pick up the sap we need for the ceremony.
Sometimes shamans have their own trees for harvesting the materials needed for performing ceremonies and communicating with their ancestors. And sometimes they'll share certain trees when they know the bounty is good.
The sap of this tree is burned as incense, meant to keep the bad spirits away, keep peace in the ceremony going. So we're going to need this. It's kind of bizarre. Going to one jungle and be taught how to get sap from a tree for poisoning fish, and it's white sap. Touch it to your eye, you could go blind. Really, really cautious about it. Come here, another tree, white sap, and we're just handling it like nobody's business and nothing said about it. So I'll just have to hope it's safe. He's gathered up some other plants along the way here as well.
The Antanosy rely almost exclusively on plants for treating illness and spirit possession. They say the healings work because of the strength of the plant medicines.
We've done a long hike, straight uphill, back downhill, just to get a bit of sap and a few leaves. Anyway, now we head back and start the ceremony.
I'm in rural Madagascar, about to partake in an ancient seed ceremony. I'm not sure of all I'm about to take in. All I know is that a seer will perform a ceremony to protect me, and then perform a second ceremony that's meant to put me in a trance.
This is just simply presenting them with what they need to perform the ceremony now. White robes.
This ceremony is an important happening for everyone in the village. As they say, it's big medicine.
The traditional healer is he's called a Baskiti, and the ceremony is called Skiti. Now, Baskiti, it's believed that he has the gift to be able to read the seeds, and the gift is passed down from generation to generation, father to son. Sometimes it also skips a generation. It can go from grandfather to grandson. Same situation with the women.
The purpose of the seed reading is to communicate with the Malagasy ancients. The lives of traditional Malagasy people are determined by connecting with the spirit world. When and who to marry, where to live, when to plant crops. All individual decisions are made following consultation with the ancients through the Baskiti. It's the Baskiti's gift to interpret the message through the seeds. Seeds are placed in columns from north to south to represent aspects of a person's life that was affected by illness, unhappiness, or regret. Opening a portal to the spirit world can be dangerous. The incense, the mixture, and the actions are all designed to protect me. Each element he puts in the pan carries with it its own energy force, and he begins to pray. Outside the hut, in honor of the seed ceremony, the duck and the tenrak we caught while hunting are being prepared for a ceremonial feast. Before the women shamans even enter the hut, where I and the other shaman await, they already begin to go into a trance. The music, the chanting, and the percussion will all become trance-inducing and seemingly endless. For hours and hours, they won't quit, stopping only for a moment now and then to ingest pure cane alcohol or smoke tobacco. The ceremony that's designed to protect me and send me into my own trance is starting to appear more like black magic. What happens now, and where I go, I can't say. It's not a lucid dream, and for the first few hours I feel nothing. But then, just when the shaman was feeling that I couldn't be tranced, it comes over me like a wave. The music that was at first simply annoying starts to vibrate through my body, and I leave myself. The shamans intensify their own trances. This feeling can't be described. Black magic, voodoo, white magic, trancing, communication with the ancients. It all comes together in a crazy, semi-dark, spiritual hybrid. Perhaps sometime later, I'll remember it all in a dream. Perhaps it'll come to me in a trance I have yet to partake in. Or perhaps only the ancients and the spirits will ever know where I went.
He's in a trance. He cannot hear me. He cannot You move and sit facing the east. You sit facing the east.
Is it voodoo? The mysterious plant mixture? The effects of the tree sap? Or is it the ancients themselves, the forefathers of these unique and courageous tribes people who inspired my journey beyond this realm? Madagascar has proven wilder, more difficult, and more awe-inspiring than I had imagined. But perhaps I've taught them something too, reminded them their skills are not forgotten, their ingenuity and strength a lesson to us all. The next generation will undoubtedly face greater challenges. Maybe the ancients have the answers, and maybe the next generation will be willing to ask the questions. I'm not here just as a filmmaker, but as a participant in something bigger, something more profound than what camera technology can capture. Their goal was to infuse me with their own sense of spirit, power, and understanding of this world, to dream a new dream beyond survival.